Far removed from its ageing predecessor is this relocatable electricity substation.
It's exactly equivalent in its functionality as the existing zone substations. It's the same protection, same transformer, same switchgear.
But the difference is that this model comes as a portable, ready-to-assemble package. The concept evolved after a severe gas shortage at Longford in Victoria caused an unprecedented surge in the demand for electricity. Using an innovative approach from its team of design and project engineers, Tomago-based Ampcontrol, experienced in building similar models for the mining industry, came up with a solution.
We had it fully assembled, tested in our factory, located on site, commissioned in this 20 weeks.
That was 3 years ago. Construction time for the award-winning design has now been reduced to only a month.
I see them being accepted more by general industry as well as the power utilities. I see when we have a look at contestable power supplies that the end customer will be able to actually purchase these to suit their application.
With huge labour and cost savings, the benefits have sparked interest among energy suppliers. Energy Australia has ordered 2 of the $1 million units, which have also attracted international attention.
We previously supplied 8 substations into the Pipavav mine in India for Coal India. We also supplied 2 substations into EGAT in Thailand, and we also just recently put 5 small units into West Papua.
Despite the downturn in Australia's manufacturing industry, Ampcontrol's workforce has grown during the past 3 years from 160 to 240 employees.
It's also seen that a lot of our major competitors have shut down, and it's left us to fill the void. So we are counter-cycle, but it's not a case of the country's in boom, it's a case of we've found where the sources of income are.
It may look like a case of double trouble, but the Hallett family couldn't be happier. 2 sets of healthy twins conceived over a decade of trying to fall pregnant. Like thousands of childless couples, Kim and John turned to IVF, where developments in state-of-the-art technology at a Newcastle fertility centre have resulted in a 60% chance of taking home a baby from one IVF egg collection cycle.
When I started working in the area of IVF, which was about 13, 14 years ago, it was 8%. The difference is phenomenal.
A recent merger with the leading Sydney fertility service has paved the way for research into human reproduction, including the areas of genetic assessment, sperm DNA damage testing and endometriosis. As head of the Lingard Hospital Clinic, Dr Robert Woolcott has helped develop better techniques of selecting the best embryos and improving the type of fluid used to keep them.
We learnt that keeping embryos in fluids in high concentration of glucose was detrimental, and that in fact the addition of substances known as non-essential amino acids very much improved the pregnancy rate.
These findings have been recognised and published in international medical journals, with the company now providing biotechnology consulting services in South America, Southeast Asia, the Middle East and joint ventures in Thailand. With the controversial issues of cloning and the use of stem cells, IVF has its critics, particularly concerning the 65,000 embryos on ice in Australia.
At this stage, we don't intend to enter those fields. We appreciate that we should really be a follower of community opinion rather than a leader of community opinion in that particular area.
According to Dr Woolcott, it's important research into identifying abnormal chromosomes, allowing only the healthiest embryos to be transferred to the uterus, that will have the greatest impact on couples desperate to start a family.
IVF may well, in the very near future, become a technology not just for infertility, but for recurrent early pregnancy loss.
Buried in the ground is a vital part of a community's infrastructure. But the relatively simple job of laying pipes can be anything but straightforward when there are tiny imperfections on the pipe's protective coating.
Any tiny flaw, or holiday as it's called, would allow moisture into that coating, would rust in the ground. And it's a very expensive exercise to dig that up and to recoat it.
Designed by Cardiff company PCWI, a special detector uses an electrical current to find any bumps or scratches on metal coatings.
If you didn't do that type of inspection, I would think that probably the pipe might only last a few years. But if you wanted it to last longer, say 20 years, it is very critical that you ensure that the testing is done.
The detector's capabilities have impressed some big Australian companies. Its effectiveness put to the test during some major construction projects, including the Sydney Harbour Tunnel and at Mascot Airport.
They've used our detectors there for the underground storage tanks, the fuel tanks. And those tanks were checked and inspected with our detectors prior to actually filling them with fuel.
The company has developed other products, including one that checks the thickness of coatings as fine as 50 microns, or less than a human hair. And the technology is not only confined to industry.
During laser surgery, if there was a hole in one of the probes, instead of actually the laser coming from the end of the probe and it was actually coming from the side, would cause major patient damage. So the leads and the probes themselves are actually checked prior to use.
Although it's already marketing products to 30 countries around the world, the company plans to increase its share of the export market.
What we will find is that we'll have to continue our R&D and really have to get out there and market very hard and exhibit our products in countries that are developing, and that's where the growth is, and we aim to sort of get some of that growth.
Just like our bodies, machines need constant looking after. Coal mine draglines can operate non-stop for up to 2 years. Any forced downtime spent on unplanned repairs can cost companies millions of dollars. It's the specialised work carried out by a team of Singleton-based engineers that helps look for abnormal symptoms.
Oil analysis is like your blood sample. We're looking for wear of the machines, contamination, if there's water in the oil, if there's sand, if there's coal dust, anything which shouldn't be in the machine.
The procedure involves thinning down grease and oil samples, separating them through magnetic filtration, popping them in the oven and then under the microscope to find any unwanted contaminant.
And creates a bit of abrasion. It's like throwing sand into anything metal would abrade it. Basically acts as a grinding paste and you end up with a lot of abrasive wear.
And that can be an expensive problem. Large industrial machines can cost between $20 million to $100 million. And at $60,000 a set, bearings don't come cheap either. So the machine's heartbeat is checked through monitoring its vibrations.
So then we'll track that problem. Mechanical problems don't just fail, they sort of break down slowly.
Adding to its local clients, Monotech has become the international medical centre for giant mining machines operating in America, Chile and Brazil. With oil samples couriered out to Australia and with the help of the internet, results are ready within 2 days.
We're actually doing faster turnaround time of samples from the USA via Australia back to USA than the local labs in America.
A week after crisis meetings revealed the Cheetahs were struggling with a lack of players, the club has picked up 9 of the 20 recruits they believe are needed to be able to field sides this season. Now a new sponsorship deal will hopefully allow them to attract the numbers needed before the season kicks off.
That's great news because it gives us a bit more money, and that's the important name of the game at the moment.
It seems incredible the club finds itself in this situation after winning a premiership just 2 years ago, but player retirements and a lack of money has pushed the 75-year-old club to the brink.
First and foremost, surviving. So we play in this year.
The club trials against Macquarie this Saturday.
I think we've got a bit over a week, not much longer.
Home of the mighty Goannas, the Cessnock Showground will host its other home side on Saturday night, and most of the Coalfields can't wait.
I can't speak for everyone, but my mum and dad's pretty happy.
Heaton hasn't played at Cessnock since 1993 and hopes for a better homecoming than his farewell.
Actually, I got knocked out.
It's a muscle injury that Andrew Johns hopes to shake off. He has until Thursday to prove he's fit to play.
Basically, the thoughts are he has to be pain-free in order for him to play this weekend, so he'll determine that.
The side to play Penrith includes Tamana Tahu back for his first game this year, while Anthony Quinn gets a chance to show his wares on the other wing. Kurt Gidley included on an extended bench, with he and John Morris to cover for Johns should he be ruled out. Either way, this is where things start to get serious.
I don't think I'd read a lot into the 2 games so far, but now we're getting down to a more serious nature. We can then determine the form from here on in. The performance matters more so than the result.
For the players, it's the last chance for a hit out before the season proper kicks off.
We played over in England, it was a while ago now, and we sort of got our juices flowing and really keen to play football, and then you have a spell for a while again, so everyone's sort of chomping at the bit.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
An inspection this afternoon of the Australian Navy mine hunter Gascoyne at ADI Carrington gave Craig Emerson an insight into the region's industrial capabilities. The Shadow Industry, Trade and Innovation Minister and his Parliamentary Secretary, Senator George Campbell, are here for 2 days as the ALP rebuilds policy after last year's election defeat. They've asked businesses for a plan to address problems which hinder industrial growth in the hunter.
That helps in working out where the bottlenecks are, where the obstacles are to making that plan a reality, and then governments can come in and ease those bottlenecks.
Federal Labor wants all levels of government to cooperate on industrial development, with Dr Emerson to raise hunter concerns with his New South Wales colleagues. While the industry continues to struggle with the changing face of industry, Senator Campbell has backed hunter calls for the federal government to have an industry policy. He believes governments can help business commit to the future.
To investment, who are prepared to commit to adapting new production processes, who are prepared to commit to skilled workforces and skilling up their workforces, that they will be able to sustain their companies into the future.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
This is United's latest acquisition. Alex Morieta arrived in camp today, ready for Friday night's home game against South Melbourne, complete with a track record of 39 goals in the last 4 seasons.
Alex is a goal scorer, as good a goal scorer I think as there is out here.
And as far as Ian Crook's concerned, his resume speaks for itself.
I suppose all strikers are sort of graded by their goals, and I think only need to look at his record to prove that he knows where the back of the net is. So.
Crook's confident there's more to the club's latest signing besides obvious goal-scoring potential.
We've now, I believe, got 4 good strikers now. And look, I know if he gets chances, he will score. So, and it maybe takes some pressure off of others as well.
The Brazilian-born Morieita says he's looking forward to contributing to United until at least the end of the 2002-2003 season.
The Newcastle got a great team that I think they're doing very well in the moment, and they prove everyone they got one of the best team in Australia.
Meantime, the United squad taking on South Melbourne this Friday was announced today. Anthony Surgeon joins the side to replace the injured Mitchell Johnson, and providing United management gets the all clear, Morieita will wear the red and blue.
Filmed on home video, this is the car that crashed into the Doolands veranda last month.
Had I been sitting here where I usually am, I would have suffered the impact of the car.
Angry Marmong Point residents say there have been 19 accidents in their suburb in recent years, and they're fearful of more.
Young people get in there with their cars and on the gravel, and they do wheelies and come out onto the tar, and then their tyres grip, and my front bedroom is facing that gripping area.
Decades ago, the waterside George Street was barely used, but now it's become a main thoroughfare for traffic between Bolton Point and Fennell Bay.
Quite often, cars are doing 100 kilometres an hour when they hit sort of the middle of George Street, if not faster.
Residents want chicanes and a blanket 50k speed limit.
The most significant reason is that this is a recreational area and it's a high use area for picnickers, people using the sailing club, people walking children and dogs in the afternoon.
A signed petition has been sent to Lake Macquarie Council and local members. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
It was work as usual for fisherman Greg Henderson today, despite the Land and Environment Court's decision to uphold the state government's commercial fishing ban in Lake Macquarie. He says while local fishermen don't have a firm plan on how they'll continue their fight as yet, they will be battling on.
There's no way it's going to end here. You know, we just can't stop. If we stop at this, then they're going to go through the whole state, and it's not fair on everybody in general. And this could affect other businesses in the future, not only ours. If they get away with this decision, then what else will they do to other small businesses?
Greg has been fishing for 25 years and has no plans to give it up just yet. He says if the ban comes into effect, he will take drastic action.
I still will be fishing after the lake closes. Maybe we'll just have to do something that I've never done before and may have to break the law, but I will be continue fishing no matter what the decision.
It's expected the fish co-op at Mannering Park at the southern end of the lake will close its doors, and 16 fishermen will have their licences bought out by the state government. The co-op at Swansea, however, will stay, instead bringing in fish from Newcastle and Nelson Bay to stock its retail outlet.
Sure, it will affect us. We just want to be able to keep a fresh supply of fish going to the people of this area, Swansea, Belmont.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. Hairdresser and makeup artist Neville Cooper had no idea just how heavy the rain was until he arrived at his King Street salon this morning.
I saw that all my windows were wet and I thought the rain had just been very heavy, and when I opened up the door I realised that the whole salon was completely flooded.
Today he had the heartbreaking task of trying to mop up. But despite the state of the salon, some customers were not to be deterred. It was a similar story next door at Bill Stevenson's jewellery store, rain also leaking in through the roof. Pacific Dreams screen printing was also flooded, the ceiling caving in some places. The owners have put the blame squarely on Newcastle Council's neglect of a nearby tree.
It blocks up the drains in the ground as well as the rooftops. We clean it out regularly, but it's still, they're like giant plates here. The tree is definitely the problem.
The downpour also caused a traffic jam in King Street this morning after a car ended up in a manhole that had been dislodged by the force of the water. 45 millimetres fell in Newcastle overnight, while Nelson Bay had 137 mils. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It took a final assessment from the club specialist this morning, but Andrew Johns will lead his team out tomorrow night on his old home ground at Cessnock.
Yeah, it holds a special place in my heart, the ground there. Me and Matthew used to do a lot of kicking and working our skills there, so as I said, I can't wait to get up there. It's going to be a highlight.
The Knights captain hasn't played a full game in his hometown since he was 14.
Makes me feel alive when I think about it, but I was trying to think last night, the last time I played there, so I think that'll be it. So we got beat that night, so I hope it turns things around.
It'll still be a cautious start for Johns, though, who won't kick for goal during the match. Those duties now with fellow Cessnock boy Bill Peden. The Kangaroo half may also rest during the match, but even he knows that's easier said than done.
I said to Denny Badiris on the way over, I might only play half a game, but once you're out there, it's hard to get you off. But all going well, I'll get through the 80 minutes and then wait another 2 weeks and it's all on.
John's biggest problem tomorrow night may well be looking after curry-bred teammate Mark Hughes.
Yeah, I told him to play on the grandstand side, so if he gets near the hill, they might throw a few cans at him. But no one usually, if they're full, they'll drink them anyway.
The match kicks off tomorrow night at 6:30 with organisers expecting a full house.
This afternoon, representatives from the various clubs met with police who advised them to move their trailers filled with equipment like boards to a more secure area. The warning came after Yamina Surf Lifesaving Club had its trailer, which looks like this one, stolen from the Blacksmiths Beach car park.
It's lousy. These are kids. These are kids aged between 8 and 14 that compete here. And we come up here in good faith, and Swansea put on a great event, and it leaves a bit of taste in your mouth.
The club estimates the trailer and boards are worth $10,000, but Yamina wasn't the only victim of thieves. North Cronulla had a hire bus and trailer of equipment stolen from Rafferty's Resort early this morning.
We've come up here to do the best thing for the kids, and it's unfortunate this has happened. There's not much we can do about it.
Colin Robinson, NBN News. Day 2 of the Hunter Valley Super Show at Spears Point appeared to be as popular as the first. Public support, which has surprised organisers.
We did have a bit of a problem here with the bulk of people. We've got traffic control out here, but it's just the enormous crowds and vehicles that we're very lucky to get through the day.
Lake Macquarie Mayor John Kilpatrick hasn't had any complaints from residents about traffic, but admits to being caught in it himself. He says council might have to consider conditions like the use of shuttle buses if the Super Show is staged next year.
I guess there's been a lot of traffic from what I've seen down there, so there may be a few of the residents that are a little bit unhappy, but at this stage I haven't heard anything, so hopefully it's all run fairly smoothly.
The sunshine and slight swell provided the thousands of competitors with perfect conditions for Day 2 of the state junior titles. The main focus today was board events and beach sprints. 12-year-old boys and girls powered through the soft sand in the early rounds of the sprints. In the first heat of the under-13s female board, Eliza Roberts and Nicole Chapman came down the last wave neck and neck. Roberts from Cronulla was off the board and across the line first. In a quarter-final of the under-14s men's board, all competitors got off to an even start. And by the end it was still close, though Stockton's Joseph Corrigan looked comfortable winning. The champs wind up tomorrow.
Dr. Steve Raymond is one of Newcastle's most respected obstetricians and gynecologists. In 21 years, he has delivered more than 4,000 bundles of joy into the world. But he says, sadly, he's now been forced to give it up due to rising insurance costs. In 1987, his medical indemnity premiums were $300. This year, they were more than $100,000.
I think there's an expectation that everybody wants a perfect outcome, and therefore if there's no perfect outcome, somebody has to be to blame. Unfortunately, the reality is life just happens.
Dr. Andrew Hedges has also decided to quit delivering babies, although, like Dr. Raymond, he will continue to see patients for gynecology and infertility work. He believes more specialists will go, and pregnant women will suffer the consequences.
Whereas couples traditionally would think long and hard about who they'd like to have deliver their baby, in the future it's going to be a case of who they can get, and inevitably the costs are going to rise substantially.
Across the Hunter Area Health Service there are 20 specialist obstetricians working in the public system,
And we believe that given the government's recent announcement about covering public patients for medical indemnity insurance, that the impact on public obstetric services will be minimal.
Many obstetricians are pushing for the state government to follow the lead of America and not only cap payouts, but reduce the statute of limitations from 21 years. That's the amount of time that can pass before a patient or family can instigate legal action. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
You didn't have to go far in the trial match against Penrith to see why Newcastle were premiers last season, or why Timana Tahu was touted for big things this season. His return game from off-season groin surgery was encouraging to say the least. His combination with Matt Gidley even more so.
He looks like he's going to be in pretty good touch come a fortnight's time.
Back rower Steve Simpson is another many have pencilled in for representative duty this season, and his form definitely looks up for it.
Certainly Simo's had a good off-season. He's a bit stronger. He's particularly quick and looked very strong on the weekend.
Hagan still has to sort out his bench for the first game of the season, with fingers crossed he'll have Adam McDougall and Ben Kennedy both back for that match. But with 2 weeks before the kick-off, defence has become the buzzword again. Penrith, another to rack up a good score with some soft tries. Meanwhile, Andrew John's captaincy aspirations of New South Wales and the Kangaroos have taken a dent, but it's got nothing to do with his on-field performances, rather the Australian selectors' perception of him off-field. Overnight, he was involved in what's been described as only a minor incident outside a Newcastle hotel with a Knights teammate. No one else was involved in a heated exchange between the pair that's since been resolved. The Knights investigated the incident and say no club action was required. However, what damage it's done in the eyes of representative selectors is something that's not clear.
You've always got your customer that will buy to a price, and that suits some of the market, but then you've got customers that like to enjoy what they have, and you know, if it's good quality product, they're happy to pay for it.
The General Manager of Newcastle Airport, Julian Green, is spearheading an ambitious campaign to convince international airlines to start flight services out of Newcastle.
Newcastle already has its first international services with Freedom Air, but we're in the process of developing a strategy that is looking at opportunities further afield, and that could be the South Pacific area, even Southeast Asia.
Initial discussions with some yet-to-be-named overseas carriers have begun, but there are no guarantees the idea will take flight. Even if it does, services would at first be limited to once weekly or even monthly.
We have no desire to turn Newcastle Airport into Sydney's second airport. I think there's a natural limit to what this market will sustain.
Passengers would be processed in the international terminal used for Freedom Air flights to New Zealand. It's just one part of a renewed strategy at Newcastle Airport. Other initiatives include the construction of an airport hotel and development of an office building for defence support industries. Another objective is luring Virgin Airlines to be Newcastle's second domestic carrier. After 6 months of talks, Mr Green believes there's a strong possibility. But any such move has been dramatically delayed due to the distraction of Ansett demise. Meantime, a new owner of the Belmont-based Aero Pelican will be announced tomorrow. The owner of a Sydney airport ground handling company signing off on the deal. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Oz Industry today launched its arrival in Newcastle to service the Hunter, Central and Mid-North Coast. The department administers assistance valued at $2 billion for product research and development and commercialisation of emerging technologies. The efforts of existing Central Coast clients Krona Holdings and NJ Phillips were recognised by Oz Industry during today's ceremony.
As if the Broadmeadow racetrack wasn't a successful hunting ground for Gai Waterhouse last year, claiming both the Gold Cup and Cameron Handicap. But tomorrow's Newmarket Handicap is being eyed off by another well-known raider, John Hawkes, as well.
Hawkes loves this track, thinks it's a great track to educate horses. Started off some of his top horses in maiden races there. Arena was one who went on to win it.
Both are great supporters of the Newcastle venue, and tomorrow's Newmarket is no different. Waterhouse has two runners in Sir Clive and Hey Pronto, which already feature in early betting. Hawkes has three lining up, including the top weight and favourite, Lord Essex.
The top weight Lord Essex, it was a brilliant first up win in the Clissold. He's trained by John Hawkes, who's won, most of our major races here on more than one occasion.
If the rain does stay around, it'll just about be the perfect paradise for one local galloper.
Perfect paradise. Comes in well at the weights. He carried the grandstand when he won here the other day. He's another horse that track conditions make no difference. If it happens to get damp, there's no worry at all.
Gary's trifecta for the Group 3 event is number 1, Lord Essex, to beat Hey Pronto and Perfect Paradise.
Blacksmiths Beach was awash with juniors from over 100 clubs last weekend, with Cronulla taking top honours followed by Swansea Belmont. The state titles continued tomorrow with Masters events followed by the Open titles. The event is proving to be a mini tourism boom for Lake Macquarie.
We've had a wonderful weekend last weekend with our junior surf lifesaving, and followed by this weekend we'll have contributed probably 25,000 visitors to the Hunter area through the surf lifesaving movement.
After a solid showing at the recent Hunter Branch Championships held at Catherine Hill Bay, Ironman Josh Blair can't wait to compete at his home break and says he'll have the local advantage.
If conditions change during the day and over the weekend, I think we're going to be best prepared for it.
There's the boats, the sand, the swimming, all facets of the surf lifesaving movement over the next 4 days virtually.
The Masters surf boats are in the water from 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
The Inter-Dominion Heats proved an outstanding success for the Newcastle Harness Club. With a record crowd of 7,600 turning out, most it seemed were there to see crowd favourite Courage Under Fire. The People's Horse featured in the third race of the night, a strong run home clocking the fastest mile time of the 4 heats. Courage Under Fire's time of 1:55 fell just 2 seconds short of the Australian record, ahead of Safe and Sound and Big Town Walton, returning $1.80 for the win and $1.04 for the place, confirming his favouritism for the upcoming Inter-Dominion. Other standouts in last night's heats included Shaker Maker, and Stars and Stripes. Both backing up wins in their first round heats last Friday. Inter-Dominion heats continue this Friday night at Harold Park. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Over the past week, Hunter police officers have held various talks with delegates from the Police Association. The meetings discussing serious concerns over Police Minister Michael Costa's restructure plans.
The reforms are happening with indecent haste, as they did in 1997. There are a lot of mistakes.
The shake-up aims to get more police back on the street from so-called desk jobs, but it will also involve the splitting up of specialised operational support groups, such as the Target Action Group, Transit Police and Anti-Theft Squads, based at Newcastle Police Station. All up, the future of 70 police officers is under a cloud. The union fears the expertise of units such as anti-theft will be lost.
It's part of the role for our members in that squad to police second-hand dealers and pawn shops across the whole region. We have a central database of information here. How can you split that up amongst 3 or 4 LACs and still maintain some unified response?
Officers from specialised groups will be deployed to local area commands. A statement by Newcastle Commander Superintendent Ron Bender says the role and function of these groups will remain essentially unchanged. What may change is where officers are located. They may, for instance, be sent to Waratah or Lake Macquarie. Unions say it's a case of politicians using smoke and mirrors to make the public believe more police will be on the front line. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
It's official, and it's a blow for Newcastle Rugby League. The famous Cheetahs won't be taking to the field for the first time in 75 years. Speaking from home today was club stalwart Max Fox as he reflected back on the news.
We found out on Tuesday morning that the board of the Newcastle Rugby League had not readmitted us to membership of the league. So that means for 2002 we don't play rugby league.
With recent financial troubles to blame, the club struggled to make up enough numbers to field 2 top-grade sides, leaving no choice but to give signed players the option of a release.
Some of the Newcastle Rugby League clubs have said, and phoned me already, send any of your players up to us to trial with us and see if they're good enough to get a game.
But the club says it'll be back in 2003. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Almost 3 years ago, NBN News brought you the story of the Gould's petrel, a seabird on the brink of extinction that only breeds in 2 places in the world, Cabbage Tree Island and the nearby Boondlabbar Island at Port Stephens. Its numbers a decade ago had fallen to just 200 breeding pairs. Now, thanks to the nurturing of National Parks and Wildlife officers like Nick Carlisle, there's around 1,000 pairs, and this season's hatchlings are being counted.
We'll get up about 8 in the morning, we'll get out, we have nest record sheets showing us where all the 800 odd nests are, and we'll work our way through those records, find individual nests, search the cavity looking for chicks. If we pull out a chick, we band it with a metal band, we then weigh it, record all the data, and then it gets put away in the computer, and we're happy that that bird's on the way and helping the species recover.
Named after naturalist John Gould, the petrels spend all their time at sea, returning to the islands only to breed. And with the rabbits that decimated their numbers now removed from the island, the birds are making a steady recovery.
It will always remain endangered in New South Wales because it has the sole nesting locality of Cabbage Tree Island and Boondlabbar Island. But to actually get them breeding correctly in terms of the right numbers, that's what we're really looking for.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
With the Nippers already completed and the Masters division contested yesterday, today saw the start for some 4,000 seniors who will compete at Blacksmiths Beach over the 3-day titles. It's been 20 years since any Ironman has won the state title in successive years, but if Queenscliff's Jeremy Cotter can do it this weekend, he'll join a list including some of the country's greatest ever surf life-saving champions. Guys like Wes Berg, one of many out to stop him, but most got a good warm-up in the Open Surf Teams event that was a battle from the start. Cotter led the field home, but there was nothing in it as a host of swimmers hit the beach. Bullies Matt Freeman just ahead of Wanda teenager Chris Allam with Cotter back in 4th. Competition in the surf ski heats was just as fierce. The conditions fueling some great duels. Redhead's Peter Scott didn't seem too worried. The Olympic kayaker tore into the surf, leaving the field in his wake. He and Belmont Swansea's Matt Chalmers both won their heats to easily qualify for the quarterfinals.
The sound of jets soaring through the skies has been a concern for residents of Saltash for years, but some say it's now become unbearable.
You get to a point where
You can't hear yourself, you can't think, you can't concentrate on what you're doing, you can't hear anyone on the telephone.
The noise has been measured during an environmental impact statement, which was called on to record the changes since the introduction of the Hawk aircraft at Williamtown. Next month, residents will have a chance to have their say on the issue when the EIS is placed on public exhibition. But already they're making their voices heard.
Because I used to think, oh, they're just a bunch of whingers. They're whinging about the noise until I moved here. It's unbelievable.
But here you're subjected daily to a noise level which is surely bad for your health.
And they've denied any involvement with the explosive booby traps found near the weapons range.
Why would someone here cause a possible accident over their homes when the aircraft could take them out? You know, it's stupid.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
The last round of the NSL season and a double-header weekend for football fans in the Hunter, with United hosting the Auckland Kings on Friday night. That's followed by rugby league on Saturday when the Knights take on the Cowboys. United's opposition, the Kings, hardly lived up to their name last week, annihilated by Parramatta 7-0. But United coach Ian Crook is not getting carried away with his side's chances.
They want to come here, take something back home to get some pride back.
With injury clouds hanging over the side, Crook is using a comfortable second placing to rest his leading players before the final series, including Chris Zoricic.
I don't see any point in pushing him through and maybe in breaking down for 2 or 3 weeks, and that's what we've got to be careful of.
Scott Bailey has been named as the replacement for Zoricic, the other addition to this week's squad being Adam Hughes. And with United looking good on paper, Crook's confident he has the goods.
I think we've got a lot of players that are playing at the top of their scale as well at the moment, which I think is always something that's going to give you a chance.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
This is the Scone Home. Today's Daily Telegraph alleges was and continues to operate as a drug house supplying heroin and other drugs. Media attention today sparked high emotions as the residents and their neighbours, upset and stunned by the claim, denied the allegation.
I can't believe it. It's one of the quietest houses we've ever lived next to, and we've certainly lived in a number of places, so no, they're wonderful neighbours. They're the quietest we've got.
Faye Pinkerton, the mother of the two men who live in the house, declined to be interviewed on camera. She believes some drug users may have visited the home in the past, but the premises now is not a hive of drug activity. While Scone Mayor Barry Rose was unavailable for interview, he said he was aware of the house in question, however hadn't heard of any recent problems involving the address. Senior police supported the Mayor's comment, saying just one family member had been arrested and jailed in the past for drugs. Hunter Commander Terry Collins says recent monitoring of the home revealed it is not being used as a drug house.
That clearly indicates that there's not the same issues that were emanating from those premises as there were 3 or 4 years ago.
Commander Collins has urged people who suspect drug activity to take their concerns to police for investigation. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Stepping off the 350 service today, the journey for these students was only just beginning. On foot, that is. After crossing the highway, there was an athletic walk ahead, just to get to their fortnightly sailing lessons. These students from Merewether and Cardiff High Schools all have an intellectual disability. Previously, they caught the 363, which took them directly to the sailing club at Belmont. But changes to the bus routes and timetables has now made that virtually impossible. And as for the students, their sailability classes are an important element of their education. Not only does it give them an outlet, but it also provides them with independence. The teachers are outraged at the lack of community consultation before the bus changes were implemented.
I think the problem is that by focusing on making money, they're forgetting that there are a lot of people on the buses who would otherwise be homebound if it wasn't for the bus.
The students we have, their only means of transport is by public transport, and we want to train them to do that so that they're going to be able to get places on their own. But these kind of changes make it too difficult for them to manage transport to a variety of activities.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
With United looking unlikely to lure South Melbourne goalkeeper Michael Petkovic, Newcastle have shown interest in Kings keeper Michael Theokolaitis for next season. He was soon tested out last night with Asala Massey setting up Joel Griffiths to tap in. His 10th goal, he knew who to thank. The young striker almost did it all himself not long after. The Kings hardly commanded much attention, but while the home side roamed free in attack, they too suffered from a lack of finish. With their first finals fast approaching, Newcastle seemed to be getting ahead of themselves. The call for more goals was obvious. Step in, Alex Moriera off the bench and almost straight onto the scorer's sheet. The Brazilian coming inches close to landing his first for Newcastle. Denied by the post, the keeper took him out on a second attempt. Shown the spot for another shot, he wasn't letting anyone stop him taking this chance, teammate or not. His celebrations also got him a yellow card, but the final result was all that counted.